The moment I stepped off the train, the smell of the streets hit me. Wet asphalt, bakery bread, and something faintly familiar like my childhood summers. I drew a deep breath, trying to fill my lungs with the home I'd been fighting for. "Dad!" A small voice called, but no one was there. My boots echoed against the station floor. I shoved my duffel into my shoulder, scanning the crowd. "I'm home," I muttered to no one in particular. The drive to our house was quiet. Too quiet. Usually, Emily would be waving from the window, calling my name, maybe even running down to greet me. Not today. My stomach twisted. I opened the door. "Emily." My voice cracked, but no answer came. The house smelled clean, almost sterile. Too clean. Too empty. From the kitchen, I heard a soft cough. James Miller appeared, carrying a tray. "Welcome home, sir," he said, bowing slightly. His eyes flickered too quickly to the door behind me. "Dinner is ready in 20 minutes. "Thanks, James," I said, forcing a smile. "Where's Emily?" James hesitated. "She went out to visit a neighbor. She said she'd return soon." I nodded, though suspicion gnawed at me. "Right. How long has she been gone?" "Since this morning, sir. She left early." His voice was calm, but something in the way he avoided my gaze made my gut tighten. I dropped my bag. "This morning." My voice rose. "She didn't tell me." James shifted uneasily. "She's busy, sir. She wanted to prepare a surprise for your return." I wanted to believe him, I really did. But there was a strange tension in the air. I pressed on. "Anything unusual happened while I was away?" He shook his head. "Everything's been normal, sir. Quiet." I frowned, pacing the kitchen. Quiet wasn't normal. Not after being away for 3 years. I ran my fingers through my hair. "I don't know, James. Something feels off." He met my gaze briefly. "Sir, perhaps you're just tired." "The journey, the war." "No," I interrupted. "I can feel it. Something is wrong." My voice softened, almost pleading. "Emily," I trailed off. Night fell quickly. I couldn't wait any longer. I went to our bedroom, half expecting her to be there, but it was empty. A note lay on the dresser. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I needed space. "Don't worry. Space. Space while I was fighting for our country." My chest tightened. I read it again, looking for a hint of jest, a mistake, anything. Nothing. Just those 3 words. I stormed into the living room. "James, where's she?" "Now." He froze. "Sir, she said she'd be back tonight. She didn't say exactly when. She didn't want to worry you." My heart pounded. I had imagined this reunion 1,000 times. Her smile, her embrace, the warmth of home. Instead, I felt cold, hollow, betrayed. Is there someone else?" The words left my lips before I could stop them. James flinched. "Sir," his voice lowered, hesitant. "I don't think." I slammed my fist against the wall. "Then tell me the truth." He swallowed hard. I just serve, sir. I don't know anything else." The room spun. I wanted to scream, to demand, to fight, but all I could do was sink onto the couch. My mind replayed every letter, every message I'd sent her, every memory I'd held onto while in trenches far away. Had it all meant nothing? Footsteps at the door startled me. I jumped up. It was James, carrying the tray again. "Sir, dinner?" His voice was almost a whisper. I waved him off. "I don't want dinner." He hesitated, then quietly left. The house was empty. My home, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. I sat in silence, staring at the note. The shadows grew long. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows. I whispered back to no one. "Emily, what have you done?" A pit of dread settled in my stomach. My absence had cost me more than I realized. And for the first time in years, I wasn't sure if I was coming home or walking into a trap. I returned home later that evening, hoping to catch Emily before she went out again. But as I passed the living room, the sight froze me. She was sitting on the couch, James kneeling beside her, laughing softly, too soft, too intimate. Their hands brushed. Her smile, it wasn't the one I remembered. My stomach churned. "Emily," I said, voice catching. She looked up, startled. "Oh, you're back early." "Back early?" I asked, disbelief thick in my throat. "It's 7 at night. You were supposed to. What is this?" James rose slowly, bowing slightly. "Sir, I can explain." "Explain what?" I stepped closer, every nerve screaming. This, both of you. How long? Emily's smile didn't falter. How long what, love? Don't play with me. My voice shook. I see it. I see everything. How long have you two been? While you were gone, she interrupted, calm, almost detached. I needed companionship. I didn't mean for it to be disrespectful, but you were gone too long. Gone too long. I laughed bitterly. Do you even hear yourself? James looked at me, pride flickering in his eyes. Sir, it's not what you think. Not what I think. I shouted, stepping closer. I see you holding her hand, laughing with her, smiling like I don't even exist. Emily rose, brushing her hair back. You were at war. Life doesn't stop. I survived, I adapted. You should understand. Adapted. My hand clenched. You adapted with him? With our servant. I didn't mean to hurt you. Her voice was calm, but there was no guilt in it. I needed someone, and he was there. I stumbled back, disbelief roaring through me. Needed someone? My mind flashed to our letters, our dreams, the nights I imagined returning to her smile. So I was just gone too long, huh? She said nothing, just looked at me with those cold, steady eyes. I ran out of the room, slamming the door behind me. My phone was in my pocket. Michael. I dialed fast. Mike. My voice cracked before I could stop it. Whoa, slow down, Michael said immediately. What happened? I don't know how to say it. I paced my small study. Emily, she with James. The servant. I saw them. They were, I swallowed hard. Intimate. Too intimate. Michael was quiet for a moment. I see. Okay. Breathe. We need to think. I can't think. I shouted. I trusted her. I wrote letters. I fought. I know, he interrupted. I get it. But you can't rush in screaming and smashing things. You'll ruin yourself and give them all the leverage. Leverage? I laughed bitterly. They've already stolen everything. My home, my wife. Listen, Michael's voice softened. We'll handle this. Quietly. Strategically. First, collect proof, observe patterns. Then you act. Revenge or closure, your choice. But not raw emotion. I rub my temples. I don't know if I can watch her laugh again, Mike. I can't. You can. I'll help you. But calm down first. Think logically. Every letter, every gift, every subtle change you noticed, write it down. Document it. Their arrogance will be their weakness. I sank into my chair. I don't know if I hate him more or her. Doesn't matter right now, Michael said. Focus on facts. The rest comes later. And don't confront her again yet. I hung up and leaned back, shaking. Flashbacks flooded me. Our first date, our wedding, nights spent talking about the future. Every memory now carried a knife in my chest. I grabbed the letters I'd sent her from my bag. Each one was a reminder of promises made, sacrifices endured, nights I prayed for her safety while facing bullets and death. They were cruel now, mocking me. James's voice echoed in my head. Sir, it's not what you think, the pride, the smugness. How dare he smile like that while my world crumbled? I needed clarity. I dug through drawers looking for anything. Notes, gifts, hidden signs. A small box under her bedside table caught my eye. Inside, a silver locket with his initials engraved faintly on the back. My hand shook as I held it. Proof. I didn't want it, but it confirmed everything. Emily, I whispered to the empty room, voice raw. How could you? She walked in then, as if sensing my despair. I didn't expect you to be so dramatic. Dramatic? I threw the locket onto the table. You've betrayed me while I was bleeding for our country. And you call me dramatic? Emily sighed, looking tired, almost bored. You left, willingly or not. Life moved on. We all move on. I clenched my fists. You call this moving on? With him? Do you even feel anything at all? I feel survival, she said, calm as ever. You survived war. I survived loneliness. That's all. My chest heaved. I wanted to scream, to hit something, to erase this memory. Instead, I nodded slowly. Fine. If that's what survival looks like, then I guess I survived too. I grabbed my coat. I need air. Michael's waiting. I need a plan. Emily's expression didn't change. James didn't appear. My home had become a battlefield, and I was unarmed. But one thing burned in me brighter than any anger. I would reclaim control. Strategize. Wait. Watch. Their smugness would be their downfall. For now, I needed my friend, my ally, someone who still saw the man I could be. Someone to help me turn betrayal into power. I stepped out into the night, the cold wind cutting my face. I whispered to myself, "You'll pay, James. You'll pay, Emily, but on my terms." I couldn't sleep. Not after what I saw, not after the locket, not after Emily's calm face staring back at me like I was nothing. I paced my room, letters clutched in my hands. Every word I wrote while in the trenches felt like a lie now. I picked up the phone and dialed Michael. "Mike," I said, voice rough, "I don't know how to handle this." "I can't." "Breathe," he said immediately. "Slow down." "What happened now?" "I tried to talk to her," I admitted, pacing. "I tried to make her see me, see as she just laughed. She said I should move on, that she chose him." Michael was silent for a moment. Then, "I see. That's harsh. But okay. Don't act rashly. Not yet. I can't just sit." I shouted. "She's with him, Mike. She's happy. And I'm heartbroken," he finished. "I get it. But that's why you need a plan. Anger won't help. Evidence, observation, strategy, that's your leverage." "I don't care about leverage," I snapped, throwing the letters onto the table. "I care about us. About what we had. Do you know what it's like to risk your life and come home to this?" "I know exactly what it's like, mate," Michael said firmly. "But you can't fight their happiness with blind emotion. You'll destroy yourself." I ran my hands through my hair. "I can't just let them." "Watch and wait," he interrupted. "I know it feels like forever, but patience is power. Right now, your mind is a weapon. Use it." I hung up and slumped against the wall, thinking of her. Emily, laughing, leaning close to him, the warmth that used to be mine now given to James. A hot spike of fury surged. I remembered the first letter I sent her from the front. "I can't wait to come home. I'll carry you in my arms if I have to." My chest ached. She would never read that the way I intended. She would read it as a memory she could discard. I sat on the edge of my bed, head in my hands. "I trusted you, Emily," I whispered. "I sacrificed everything." Footsteps outside made me freeze. I peeked through the blinds. James was in the garden, tending plants Emily had always loved. He smiled at something she said, and my stomach dropped. That smug satisfaction, the confidence he carried, it was infuriating. I grabbed my coat. I needed air. I needed clarity. "I can't stay here like this," I muttered. Outside, the night was cold, but the wind cleared my mind. I called Michael again. "I need advice," I said quietly. "Start small," he said. "Observe, record, note inconsistencies. Don't confront yet. Let them think you're broken. Then you decide when to act." "I don't want to wait," I said, teeth clenched. "I want to smash him." "You want revenge," Michael said. "And that's fine. But you need control. If you lose control, he wins. She wins. You lose everything." I inhaled deeply, trying to calm the fury. "Control, patience. Evidence." "Exactly," Michael said. "And remember, you don't have to hate her to win. Hating her will only chain you to the past." I paced again. Every memory of Emily felt like salt in an open wound. Our first date, our wedding night, the evenings we spent laughing, planning our future. I pictured her lying next to him now, whispering, laughing. I slammed my fists on the railing outside. "I won't let this break me," I growled. "I will take back my life, my dignity, and if they underestimate me, they'll regret it." The first step was acceptance. Emily had chosen, and I had to face that. But acceptance didn't mean surrender. It meant strategy, calculation. I would not crumble. Not in front of them. Not in front of anyone. Back inside, I went through our home, observing details I had never noticed before. A scarf on the chair, James's mug on her desk, letters she had tucked away in drawers. Every small detail was a clue, a piece of the puzzle. My mind started working in overdrive. I stopped at the locket again. Silver, engraved initials. James. She didn't hide it. Did she think I was too naive, too weak? I smiled grimly. Naive, maybe. Weak, never. I called Michael one last time that night. "I'm ready," I said. "I can wait. I can plan. But I'm done being their victim." "That's the spirit," he said. "Rebuild yourself first. Then decide. Revenge, closure, or both. Whatever you choose, make it yours." not theirs. I dropped the phone and sat by the window, watching the dark streets below. Sleep was impossible, but clarity had arrived. My heartbreak had sharpened into focus. My loyalty and sacrifice were not wasted. They were my foundation. Emily and James had their moment of smug satisfaction. Let them enjoy it while it lasted. My time would come. I whispered to the night, voice steady despite the anger. I will not let this define me. I will rise, and they'll see who I really am. The wind rattled the panes. My mind raced with plans, observations, and the beginnings of strategy. I had reached the breaking point, and from it, I would forge something stronger than grief. Something unstoppable. For the first time since returning, I felt a flicker of power. Not the power to destroy, but the power to rebuild, to wait, to strike when the time was right. Emily's betrayal had ignited something inside me. Something cold, calculated, and unrelenting. I would not falter. I would not break. And when they underestimated me, they would regret it. I woke up before the sun, the house quiet except for the faint ticking of the clock. Emily was still asleep, or maybe she was with him. Either way, it no longer mattered to me. I had decided I would live under this roof, but I would not give her my emotions anymore. James appeared in the kitchen, humming softly. I barely acknowledged him, pouring coffee into a mug. "Morning, sir," he said, a smirk barely hidden. "Morning," I replied flatly. No warmth, no invitation. He faltered slightly, caught off guard by my calm. "Busy today?" he asked, leaning casually against the counter. I met his gaze steadily. "Always," I said, sipping the coffee. "And you?" "Same as always," he said, shifting uncomfortably. The arrogance was there, but now I could see the cracks. Later, I met Sarah at the cafe down the street. "James is unbearable, isn't he?" she said softly, stirring her tea. "I've started noticing things," I admitted. "Little mistakes, arrogance, overconfidence. It's like he thinks the house belongs to him." She smiled gently. "You've always been strong, even if you didn't see it. You just need to remember it." "I'm trying," I said. "After everything, I thought I'd be broken forever. But I'm not. I have to focus on me now." Sarah reached across the table, lightly touching my hand. "And you will. One step at a time." At home, I began observing carefully. James left small traces of his pride. An expensive tie left on the couch, a note carelessly tucked in the drawer, his smirk whenever Emily responded to him. Every little thing was a clue, a sign of overconfidence. One evening, I confronted Emily lightly at dinner. "You left your scarf on the staircase," I said casually. "Thought you'd want it back." She glanced at me, puzzled. "Oh, thanks." Her tone lacked its usual arrogance, just neutral acknowledgement. I smiled internally. Small victories. James lingered nearby, watching. "Sir," he said, suspicious. "I know," I said, meeting his gaze. "I see everything." He hesitated, unsure if I was serious. That tiny pause gave me more satisfaction than I expected. Later, I met Sarah in the garden. "I can't just sit here," I said, pacing. "I need evidence, proof. I need to show them that arrogance and betrayal have consequences." "Patience," she advised. "You're already winning without them knowing. Observe, document. Let them unravel themselves." I nodded. She had a way of making me feel grounded again. Someone who didn't judge, someone who just helped me breathe. At night, I started keeping a journal. Every misplaced object, every note, every careless smile between Emily and James went in. Every lapse in their behavior, every arrogance-filled laugh was recorded. I was sharpening my mind like a blade. Emily stopped trying to engage me emotionally. She would speak, but only lightly, keeping distance. Her coldness, once painful, now felt like armor for me. I learned to smile politely, nod, and keep my plans in motion. One afternoon, James bragged loudly to Emily about some favor he had done for a neighbor. I told him I'd handle it, he said, chest puffed, voice proud. Emily laughed, soft and indulgent. "Of course, James. You're amazing." I watched silently from the hallway. My lips curved slightly. Pride and arrogance, they always leave traces. He had no idea I was watching. Later, I met Sarah again. "He's careless," I said. "Too confident." "Emily, she's sloppy." I see every detail they leave behind. Good, she said gently. That's your advantage. But don't let anger cloud your judgment. I won't, I said, taking a deep breath. Anger isn't my weapon anymore. Observation is. Strategy is. And slowly, I will reclaim everything. Each day, I felt a little more in control. My confidence returned not through confrontation, but through quiet victories. I could hear James grumbling to himself about small inconveniences, papers misplaced, forgotten notes. Emily looked uneasy when I mentioned small inconsistencies casually, her pride slightly bruised. I realized something crucial. Power and control restored my self-respect faster than blind revenge. The idea of exploding at them, of confronting them, no longer tempted me. Instead, I smiled politely, gathered my evidence, and watched. Sarah was a constant reminder that life could still hold kindness, trust, and loyalty. She didn't judge my past mistakes or heartbreak. She only helped me see the path forward. One evening, I caught Emily trying to hide a letter from James. I didn't act. I just noted it in my journal. Tomorrow, or next week, the timing would be right. Every small slip, every arrogant gesture was a stepping stone. I went to bed that night for the first time in weeks, feeling calm. The fire in my chest was still there, but it was tempered now with patience, planning, and control. My heartbreak had evolved into strategy. My fury had become focus. And I knew, finally, that the house might still belong to them, but my mind and my power were mine to reclaim. I watched from the edge of the garden party, swirling my glass of wine, pretending to admire the sunset. James was at the center of the crowd, speaking loudly, gesturing as though he owned the room. His arrogance was almost palpable, and I smiled inwardly. "Did you see that?" whispered Sarah, leaning close. "He's so obvious." "I see everything," I said softly, keeping my voice low. "And everyone else is starting to notice too. Watch him stumble. It's only a matter of time." James laughed, pointing at a guest who had accidentally spilled a drink. "Honestly, can't anyone follow simple instructions?" he said. The room tensed. Eyes flicked to him, murmurs forming. Emily's hand brushed mine as she passed. I felt her hesitation. She caught my gaze for a split second, her expression unreadable. A small smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Her perfect control was cracking. Later, I spoke to a few acquaintances quietly. "Did James mention the Henderson deal?" I asked subtly, raising an eyebrow. "Funny. The numbers don't add up when you check the reports." "Oh," one guest said, frowning. "Really? I hadn't noticed." I nodded slowly. "I only bring it up because it affects everyone's reputation. Surprising how mistakes pile up when someone's overconfident." By the end of the evening, I could feel the ripple effect. James's charm was faltering. Whispers followed him. People were questioning his competence without realizing I had merely suggested doubt. The next morning, I met Michael in the study. "You've started well," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Karma has a way of moving when people don't control themselves." "I'm careful," I admitted. "I don't confront him directly. I let him expose himself, slowly." Emily notices, too, small cracks. She hates losing control, and it's showing. "That's the point," Michael said. "Observe. Wait. Intervene only when necessary. Your dignity remains intact." At lunch, Emily finally spoke, hesitantly. I noticed something odd about James recently." Her voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. "Oh," I replied, pretending casual interest. "What do you mean?" She sighed, fiddling with her napkin. "He's sloppy, overconfident. He's making mistakes I didn't expect." I kept my expression neutral. People often reveal themselves when they believe no one is watching. I paused. Sometimes their choices catch up to them. Her eyes darted to me, a flicker of guilt quickly masked. But I saw it, the first real crack. Later that week, during a dinner with mutual friends, James made a bold claim about a project he had single-handedly secured. One guest raised an eyebrow. "I thought the Thompson account was handled differently." James laughed nervously. "Oh, that minor detail. Doesn't matter." I leaned in subtly, voice calm, just loud enough for nearby ears. "Minor details matter more than you think. Reputation can crumble over them." He tensed, the room noticing. The smug confidence faltered. Small snickers echoed. I sipped my drink, outwardly calm, while inside satisfaction surged. Emily didn't speak for the rest of dinner. I felt her eyes on me once, fleeting, filled with realization and guilt. She couldn't deny it. She had chosen James, and now the consequences were emerging naturally. That night, I called Sarah. "It's working," I said quietly. "They're both showing weakness. Emily's guilt is surfacing, and James, he's blind to his own mistakes." "Good," she said. "But be careful. Don't let satisfaction turn into arrogance on your side. You need patience more than anything." "I know," I replied. "Patience and observation, and subtle reminders. Small nudges that consequences are coming." The next day, I overheard James boasting about a minor social connection, claiming credit for something he barely influenced. I smiled. I made a note in my journal. Arrogance, carelessness, pride. The perfect recipe for downfall. Emily approached me later. I didn't realize he would act like that publicly," she said softly, voice trembling slightly. "I told you people reveal themselves," I said, voice calm. "Sometimes their choices return to them without interference." She looked down, silence filling the space between us. That was enough for me. She was beginning to feel the weight of her selfish decisions. It was subtle, but unmistakable. At the next gathering, I made a deliberate effort to appear neutral, friendly, and unaffected. James strutted in, overconfident as ever. Within minutes, a small mistake, a misquoted fact during a toast, triggered murmurs from the guests. I watched carefully. He recovered poorly, stumbling over his words, face flushing red. Emily's gaze met mine. Just a fraction of acknowledgement, guilt, fear, and regret, all buried under her pride. I allowed a slight smile, barely noticeable, as I sipped my drink. Later that evening, alone with Michael, I reflected. "It's strange," I said. "I feel satisfaction, yes, but also lingering bitterness. It reminded me why I trusted, why I sacrificed." Michael nodded. "Bitterness is natural, but you've mastered self-control. Use the emotion, don't let it use you. That's the difference between revenge and strategy." "I see that now," I said. "Every social misstep they make, every careless moment, it's karma moving. I don't have to act rashly. I simply guide events subtly." Sarah called while I was reviewing notes. "You're handling this well," she said cheerfully. "Remember to rest too. Observation requires a clear mind." "I will," I promised. "I've learned something crucial. Power, control, patience. These restore dignity faster than any immediate retaliation." And as I hung up, I realized the truth. Karma was unfolding naturally without my hand directly striking. My strategy, patience, and emotional intelligence had turned betrayal into opportunity. James's arrogance and Emily's guilt were no longer my pain. They were my tools. I leaned back, calm, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Let them stumble. Let them falter. And when the moment arrived, I would ensure they saw the consequences quietly, efficiently, and utterly. I watched from the balcony as James fumbled through another conversation, his usual confidence replaced by stammering and forced laughter. A guest raised an eyebrow, whispered to another, and I felt the satisfaction settle quietly in my chest. Karma, finally in motion. Michael appeared beside me, holding a drink. "Looks like your patience is paying off," he said, voice calm but approving. "It is," I admitted, "but it's bittersweet." Watching him unravel, Emily's expression twisting every time he falters. Their satisfaction, yes, but also, I trailed off. Michael nodded knowingly. "Melancholy?" "Exactly," I said. "This was my life too. And now, it's theirs that crumbles." Later, at dinner, Emily hesitated before speaking. I didn't expect him to mess up so publicly," she said softly, eyes darting toward James. I nodded slowly, keeping my tone neutral. People reveal themselves when they think no one is looking. It seems arrogance caught up with him. Her hands clenched slightly in her lap. I didn't see it coming," she whispered. "Sometimes the consequences of choices appear when it's too late to correct them," I said, voice calm but deliberate. And it's not just him. They affect each other. James, overhearing, tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. He cleared his throat, muttering something about a minor miscommunication. The room tensed. Eyes shifted. He realized he had no allies tonight. I took a sip of water, letting the silence stretch. Small, deliberate pauses worked better than confrontation. I didn't need to yell, threaten, or humiliate. Nature was taking care of it for me. After dinner, I found Emily alone in the sitting room. "We need to talk," I said softly. She looked up, startled. I suppose so." I gestured for her to sit. "I watched everything, Emily. Every choice you made while I was away. Every careless smile, every misplaced word. I trusted you, and you betrayed me." Her eyes filled with shame, but she didn't speak. "I'm not here to punish you," I continued, voice steady. "This isn't revenge. This is closure. You made your choice, and I am accepting it. I never wanted to hurt you," she said quietly, voice trembling. I know you didn't think," I said, interrupting gently. "But your actions still hurt. I loved you, Emily, deeply, and now that chapter is over." She looked away, tears threatening. I understand." "Good," I said softly. "I'm not angry anymore. I realized something important. My strength isn't in destroying them. It's in transforming myself, in not losing who I am despite their choices." Emily's lips quivered. You've changed. You're calm, controlled." "I've learned patience, observation, and restraint," I replied. "Those are more powerful than any outburst or confrontation. They reveal truth naturally." Later, I met Michael at the study. "You're handling this remarkably," he said. "I expected you to explode at some point. I thought I would, I admitted, but there's a difference between anger and strategy. Watching them unravel naturally, it's satisfying, but it's also freeing. I'm no longer chained to my own bitterness." "You found balance," Michael said, nodding. "Now you can focus on yourself rather than them." Sarah joined us shortly after, smiling gently. "I see it too," she said softly. "You're steady, strong. You've kept your dignity while they stumble." I smiled faintly. It feels right. Watching James's arrogance crumble, Emily's guilt emerge. It's justice, yes, but it's tempered. No one has to be humiliated by me directly. "Sometimes," Sarah said, "the universe handles things better than we ever could." In the following days, James's mistakes became more obvious. A small mismanagement of an account, a poorly timed comment at a social function, subtle errors noticed by colleagues. I stayed in the background, smiling politely, taking note. Emily's composure faltered as whispers reached her ears. Invitations she had expected were rescinded. Comments she overheard hinted at disappointment in her social circle. I sensed the weight of regret pressing down on her shoulders. She looked at me once, almost pleading, but I only nodded calmly. No words, no confrontations. One evening, Michael and I observed them at a charity event. James tripped over a misplaced rug while boasting about his achievements. Guests tittered discreetly. Emily's face went pale, her hand tightening on her clutch. I didn't need to do anything. Their downfall unfolded naturally, perfectly. After the event, Sarah met me quietly. "They're unraveling faster than I expected," she whispered. "Yes," I said, "and yet there's a sadness mixed in. I mourn what we had, even as I witness what's deserved." That night, I wrote in my journal, "Dignity preserved. Justice served indirectly. Strength reclaimed. Lessons learned." I called Michael later. "It's complete," I said. "They've lost the arrogance and control they once had. I've kept my calm, my self-respect intact. Closure feels different than I imagined." "Good," he said. "You've transformed this pain into wisdom. That's the real victory." I looked at the night sky from my balcony. Stars glimmered coldly above, indifferent to human folly. And yet, beneath them, I felt power, balance, and peace. Emily and James had fallen, as they deserved. Their consequences were visible, undeniable. And I had emerged not as a broken man, but as someone tempered by betrayal, strengthened by patience, and elevated by self-control. I whispered into the night, voice steady, firm, "This chapter is over. I am free. I am whole. and I will build what's mine, without bitterness, without vengeance. Just strength, dignity, and the quiet knowledge that truth prevails. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, gentle and forgiving. I stretched, feeling the weight of months, years, really, of anger and heartbreak lifting slowly. For the first time, I could breathe without tension. Sarah was already in the kitchen, humming softly as she poured coffee. "Morning," she said cheerfully. "Morning," I replied, smiling genuinely. "You always make mornings feel easier." She laughed lightly, a sound that reminded me how quiet joy could be. "It's the little things. You've just been carrying so much. I think it's finally settling." I nodded. I've realized something important. I've carried it all too long. Betrayal, anger, bitterness, they belong to them, not me. I've wasted enough energy. Sarah leaned against the counter. "And now," I said, taking a deep breath, "I focus on building what matters. Trust, respect, real relationships, people who care without pretense." She smiled warmly. "Including me?" I laughed softly, feeling the tension ease further. "Yes, I think including you." Later, I walked through the streets I had once known so well. Memories lingered, wore letters, promises, laughter, arguments, but they no longer cut deep. Each memory carried a lesson, not pain. I whispered to myself, I survived. I learned. I grew. Michael called as I returned home. "I heard about the charity event," he said. "James and Emily have faded from the circles they tried to dominate. Reputation's fragile when built on arrogance." I chuckled quietly. "I've noticed, but I'm not gloating. Their fall was inevitable. What matters now is what I do with my freedom, my life." "You've earned it," Michael said, tone approving. "And you'll make the most of it, I'm sure." That evening, Sarah and I sat on the balcony. "It's peaceful," she said, looking at the horizon. "Feels like anything is possible." "Anything is," I agreed. "I spent too long consumed by what I lost. Now I'm focused on what I can create. Stronger connections, meaningful work, moments that don't hurt." She glanced at me, thoughtful. "Do you feel ready for something new?" I considered the question. "I do. Not to replace the past, not to erase it, but to build a future with honesty. With people who respect me and whom I respect in return." Sarah reached over, brushing my hand. "Then let's start building it together." I squeezed her hand, heart lighter than it had been in years. "Yes, together." Later that night, I reflected alone. I thought of Emily and James, how they had consumed my thoughts, my energy. But now, they were mere shadows, reminders of lessons learned. I whispered to the dark room, "Thank you for showing me the truth. But I'm done being haunted." The house felt warmer than it had in months. Silence no longer carried tension. It carried clarity. I revisited old letters, not to mourn, but to understand the depth of trust one had offered and the strength I had found when it was betrayed. Michael called again. "You sound different," he said, smiling over the phone. "Calm, balanced, strong." "I've finally learned," I said. "Anger doesn't teach. Revenge doesn't heal. Understanding and self-respect do." Sarah joined me later, sitting quietly as we watched the stars. "It's strange," she said softly, "how peace feels heavier than conflict." "Yes," I said, leaning back. "Peace is earned. Conflict is easy. I've earned this calm, and I won't trade it for anything." I thought of Emily once more, fleetingly. "I hope she learns," I whispered. "But she's no longer part of my world. My life isn't dictated by her choices anymore." James, too, was just a memory, an example of arrogance meeting consequence. I felt no desire to humiliate, no need for confrontation. Justice had unfolded naturally. Sarah looked at me, her eyes reflecting quiet trust. "I'm glad you're here," she said. "Not the old you, but the you that's grown from everything." I nodded. "I'm glad too. Every mistake, every betrayal, every sleepless night, it shaped me. Not into bitterness, but into someone ready to live fully." The night deepened, and I felt a sense of completion. The war within my heart, the battles of trust, betrayal, and anger, had ended, not with destruction, but with wisdom. I whispered one last thought to myself. I am free. I am strong. I am ready. With Sarah beside me, the future felt open and unbound. I could finally envision life built on honesty, respect, and real affection. My past was a teacher, not a shackle. I closed my eyes, letting the cool night air wash over me, knowing that the lessons of betrayal, patience, and resilience had forged a new man. The sun would rise again, and so would I, not consumed by loss, but elevated by understanding, ready to embrace every authentic moment that lay ahead. And for the first time in years, I felt the warmth of hope, quietly powerful and utterly mine.